Tableau Prep is a tool in the Tableau ecosystem that allows us to clean data in a more streamlined, flexible, and repeatable way. Datasets that we work with will often require a bit or a lot of cleaning and transformation. When we rely on just Tableau Desktop to do all of these, our workbooks tend to get bloated and they become slower. Meaning, in addition to rendering the charts, our dashboards, our visualizations, these workbooks are also now tasked to also do a lot of the cleaning. With Tableau Prep, we can separate out all the cleaning activities and we can more readily provide Tableau Desktop the clean datasets that are more ready for analysis. This then means that our workbooks that contain our dashboards, our stories, our charts, they can be more efficient and they will be faster since there is less cleaning that need to be done. This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community for creative and curious people. We can learn a variety of topics and skills from Skillshare classes, from photography to digital art to entrepreneurship and productivity. In addition to these classes, Skillshare also celebrates important milestones. This morning, I received this email about celebrating Women's History Month. As a female who's had and still has my share of struggles, this email just automatically lifted my spirits. In addition to classes, Skillshare also supports additional initiatives like promoting women creatives in Society 6. I've enjoyed the classes I've taken with Skillshare, and now I'm also going to enjoy supporting initiatives with these merch. If you are interested in learning more about this amazing learning platform and community, try Skillshare. The first 1,000 people to use the link in the description below will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. For now, I will give you a quick tour of Tableau Prep Builder. There will be additional, more detailed videos in the future on Tableau Prep Builder and its capabilities. I've opened up Tableau Prep Builder. This is what the Tableau Prep Builder interface looks like. If you've used Tableau Desktop before, this is a familiar look and feel. A lot of aspects are very visual. You can see a lot of visual cues, and it will have a lot of the similar drag and drop capabilities. This crossover of look and feel between Tableau Prep Builder and Tableau Desktop really helps with the learning curve. It will be easier for you to get the hang of working with Tableau Prep Builder. On the left-hand side, you're going to see a way to add multiple connections. Everything we work with in Tableau Prep Builder is called a flow. So we can add a flow, we can open a flow, or we can create a flow. We can also connect to data. Currently, Tableau Prep Builder supports a number of them. Similar to what we've seen in Tableau Desktop, we can connect to Tableau Server, we can connect to files, and we can also connect to server-based data sources. Right here in the middle are the most recent flows that we've worked with, if you have them. On the right-hand side are a few very useful training and links and documentation. Tableau Prep Builder also comes with 2 sample flows. So we have the Superstore sample flow and the World Indicators sample flow. So hovering over the Superstore sample flow already gives us an idea that this sample flow has 6 different inputs, 2 outputs, and both outputs are hyperfiles or extract files. Let's click on one of these sample flows and let's take a look at the interface once we have a flow open. So what we're seeing in here is on the left-hand side under connections, you're seeing that there are 5 external files that we're connecting to. You have 2 CSV files and 3 Excel files. What we are seeing in here is what we call a flow. This area is what we call the flow pane. This visually shows us how the data flows and how the cleaning happens. Each of the icons that we're seeing represent a different task or a different cleaning stage. As we click on some of these icons, for example, if I click on this Orders South connection, we will see certain areas change. What you see in this main screen changes depending on which icon we have selected. So right now in the input page, we're going to see configurations very specific to the input. If I click on another stage, this one is a cleaning step, the interface changes again. And what we're seeing in here is a changes pane, a profile pane, and a data grid. So this is similar to your records view of your data. We can make adjustments to how we want to see the data. So if we take a look at some of these icons, right now the default is showing the flow pane, the profile pane, as well as the data grid. But if we only want to see the data grid, we can toggle the view. So right now we're only seeing the records view of the data. We could also show just the list view. And the list view is essentially just a metadata view. You're only seeing the field names, but you're not seeing any of the corresponding records. So let's go back to the flow pane. Let's maximize this. As we hover over these lines, we can see that there's a plus sign. It means that we can add additional steps if we need to add additional steps. And as I click on this plus sign, this will give us an idea of the types of cleaning or tasks that are available in Tableau Prep. So for example, we can add a cleaning step, which is essentially that. We can add new rows, we can aggregate our data, we can pivot or unpivot our data, we can perform joins, we can perform unions, we can also add scripts if we need to, or add prediction, add an output, or insert additional predefined flows. Now, sometimes our workflows might have too many steps and they won't fit in one screen. What we can do is we can zoom in or out at any point in time. So on the bottom right corner of the flow pane, there is a flow navigator. So for example, right now, this is showing us the flow at 100% zoom level. If I hover over this, I can reset the view. I can make this fit my entire screen, or I can also decide to zoom in. Perhaps sometimes I just want to see some of the tasks up front. So as I zoom in though, and right now let's expand the flow navigator, we can see from here exactly what portion of the flow we're looking at. If we want to move around, we can simply move around that faint rectangle. So as I move around, you can see all of the steps that are also maximized. Now that we've looked at a brief overview of Tableau Prep, I'd like to now show the 10 features that I think are helpful and powerful in Tableau Prep. The first strong feature is really based on the nature of Tableau Prep Builder. Because this provides a visual workflow which shows us how the data and the cleaning and the transformation flows, this is really self-documenting work. And this work allows us to better understand our data cleaning ourselves and to be able to communicate this better and more easily to others, for example, to our teams and to our clients. There are also a lot of features that are baked into the product that allows us to enhance this documentation. For example, we can change the name of the steps. We can also add descriptions. We can also create standard colors for steps for easy visual recognition. For example, if it's all the cleaning steps right after the input step, we can select all of these. And we can change the color. All the icons that we're seeing, they are indicative of the changes that are happening at each of those steps. If there are tasks that are related together, we can also group them. For example, if these tasks right here are all related together, we can decide to group them, and it allows us to organize the flow better. So for example, in here, there is a folder, but I can expand this at any point in time. In addition to documentation at the step level, when we click on one of these steps, so for example, this is a cleaning step, let me click on that. We can also document at the changes level. Let's expand this changes pane. Let's right click and add a description. The power of this is really in the collaboration and communication. Rarely do we just work alone. A lot of times we work with teams. A lot of times we work with our stakeholders. And being able to visually document our process is a very valuable thing. The second feature is the profile pane. Tableau Prep also provides a visual way for us to understand and explore our data. So for example, in here, we can easily see how many fields we're working with and how many rows we're working with. Right now, this is an approximation. But if we hover over this, we can see exactly how many records we're working with. For each of the individual fields or profile cards, we can also see the unique values for each of those fields. What we see in this profile pane is also the shape of our data. It's the distribution of the values in our fields. We can see some histograms, and let's scroll to the right. For example, in here, those faint gray bars actually tell us the distribution of our data. For example, we can see right away that Florida has the most values. And it's not just a visual. When we hover over this, this will tell us some specifics. For example, there are 383 rows that contain Florida, and that is 24% of our overall records. Now, in cases where we have too many values and we can't see the distribution all at once, what we can see is a minified histogram. So what this tells us is this portion right here is only the ones that are actually inside the rectangle, but there's more values after this view. We can use that rectangle to scroll down and then take a look and explore our data a little bit more. Right beside our column name, we also see the total unique values for this particular field. There are 822 unique order IDs. So as we move this rectangle down, we can start exploring our data. And if needed, we can also sort these. So in here, maybe let's sort. The most common is this order ID. The least common is going to be that order ID. One impressive feature in Tableau Prep is its ability to capture changes. Some steps in the workflow provide a changes pane. For example, in here, we can see that this input has a little icon that tells us there's a change that happened there. When I click on this, and let's maximize this screen, there is a changes pane. Let's open that up. And what this tells us is we are capturing all the changes at this level, at the input level. So for example, if we decide to make some additional changes on this input, for example, changing country to location, we can see that the change is now logged into the changes pane. Now we can also move things around if we need to. For example, if renaming this field needs to come before the previous change, we can simply just move things around. We can also edit this if we need to. And you can see that when you click on the pencil icon, it's going to highlight the change that has happened. Now let's take a look at the changes pane for the cleaning step. Let's minimize this. Let's find a cleaning step that has a lot of changes, and it seems like this one has a lot of changes, so let's click on that. Let's maximize this screen. Let's expand the changes pane. And again, what's notable about this is these are not simply text logs. These are actual movable, editable, and reusable steps. I can move things around. For example, if the requirements change, I can easily do these without having to throw away work that's already been done. If I need to edit, I can also edit. And if I need to remove it, I can simply remove it. Now for each of these steps, when I click on one of these steps, the profile pane and the data grid will show the data at that step, at that point. It takes you back to what the data looked like before any of the future changes. So it's like creating a picture or a snapshot of the data at that point in time. So notice what happens right now if I click on the first change, and the second change, and the third change. All of the changes are being reflected back. So if we need to review these, we can easily do the review. Another feature that is baked into Tableau Prep is the ability to preview the shape of the data in Tableau Desktop at any point in time. For example, if I want to see what the data looks like at this point, I can simply right-click on that step, and there should be an option to preview in Tableau Desktop. So in here, let's click on this. Now, the way this works is it creates a temporary data flow that we can connect to, and this is what that data looked like at that point in time. Where this is helpful is if we want to compare before and after, before the change, after the change. And again, we can easily do that. We can find another step, click on done here, and perhaps we want to see what the data looks like at this step right here, and we can preview that in Tableau Desktop side by side and preview. This is helpful because it can help us validate if we can create maybe the charts that we envisioned. If the shape of the data now really helps us answer our questions, and it will also allow us to more easily capture gaps or omissions that maybe we have missed in our initial requirements. Tableau Prep does have some additional built-in cleaning functionalities that are not available in Tableau Desktop. For example, if we are cleaning some string values, if we click on the drop-down under Clean, we can see options that make it easy for us to change the string to all uppercase, maybe all lowercase, maybe ways for us to remove letters and numbers and punctuation, or even removing spaces. So let's give it a try. So on the drop down, Clean, and perhaps we are going to make everything uppercase, and maybe we want to remove any extra spaces. So under Clean, extra spaces. With strings, we can also easily group values. Some of the options that are available include manual selection. So in here, it means that we have to select each one of these values and put them in a group. But we can also depend on some algorithms for identifying the same pronunciation, maybe grouping them based on common characters or common spelling. So let's give it a try. Maybe in here, we're going to group them based on pronunciation. So group values, pronunciation. And we can see in here, C. Arnold, Tableau Prep was able to identify the different variations of C. Arnold. Let's scroll to the right. Tableau Prep also comes with some recommendations. So for example, in here, there are 11 recommendations. It has already pre-scanned our data and it will have given us some ideas on perhaps how we can clean the data. Now, in addition to this, Tableau Prep supports data roles or checking against data roles. We can think of data roles as a predefined and validated set of values. For example, for city, this is not simply a string, but this is a geospatial value. It is a location. There is already a built-in data role for cities. So what we can do is we can check this against the data role of city, and this will help us identify any invalid cities. Note in here that if we don't have a predefined data role, we can also publish our own data role if we have access to Tableau Server or Tableau Online. There are a number of other functionalities, but Tableau Prep also allows us to create calculations, and there are some visual editors for some of these calculations. For example, if we click on this ellipses, we can create a calculated field, and from here we can see an option to create a custom calculation, but there are also additional types like fixed LOD, rank, and tile, and this means there's a visual editor for these calculations within Tableau Prep. Let's try out fixed LOD. So if we want to fix this calculation to a customer ID, and perhaps what we want to do is get the overall profit for each customer ID, and in this case, we're just going to say profit, and instead of minimum, it's just going to be the sum. And let's call this field profit per customer. Profit per customer. Once we create this, we should now have a list of profit for the 793 customers that we have in our data source. We can also easily explore related records, related fields, and Lineage and Tableau Prep. For example, let's click on one of these days to ship. If we are interested to see which records and which customers fall under this value, for example, the 2 days to ship, once we select that, what we are seeing in the other profile cards is what we call proportional brushing. It will show us the proportion of 2 compared to all the other column values. If we hover over any of these values, we can see the total number of records for 2018, as well as the 712 records highlighted, which is the selected number of days to ship. And we can see that there are 712 out of those 5,526 rows that are related to this value. Now in the data grid, this is also automatically filtered to the 2 days to ship. If we select a particular value within the data grid, for example, technology, notice what's going to happen. So if I click on technology right now, notice that the other values that are also technology gets highlighted. And this is going to be highlighted for all the values in this particular column. So as we scroll down, we can see everything that is related to technology. One more feature is Lineage. For example, right now, this clean step is highlighted and it shows us all the values in the profile pane. Now notice what happens when I click on this card for the field called quota. Notice what happens to the overall flow. So as I click quota right now, notice that the other parts of the flow became dimmed. And there are only certain portions, for example, that, and this line and that line over there, those are the only ones that have the darker lines or the darker colors. What this tells us is this particular field, quota, it comes from this operation, which is a join, which comes from this other operation, which is a pivot, that comes from this particular input. This is Lineage. It shows us where the data came from and how it traveled to get to that cleaning stage. Tableau Prep supports pretty much every type of join. So here's an example. I've simply connected to the Superstore dataset, and to create a join, we can either click on the plus sign and then add a join, or we can simply drag and drop one of these steps to the other. For example, in here, I'm going to click on returns, drag that over, and then select the operation called join. Now the interface for join is going to be a little bit different. Let's maximize this, and let's minimize our sidebar. Now, what we're seeing in our left-hand side in the left-hand pane are different configurations for joins. For example, on what fields are we joining against? What operator are we using? What is the join type? And what will the results look like? So in here, it is also very visual in showing us which ones are matching and which records are going to get excluded. Now, all of these bars in the summary of join results, they're clickable. For example, if I want to know what is included from orders, I can click on this and notice that my result is actually showing up on the right-hand side. If I want to show all the values from returns, I can simply click on the bar for returns, and that's also going to show up. If I want to know the excluded values, I can simply click on that, and my preview also changes. Now, in terms of the join clauses, we can adjust the columns if this is not right. So if I click on this, we can identify which fields should match and what operator to use. So in here, it's a drop down. It could either be an equal sign, a not equal sign, a greater than equal to, less than equal to. If we need to add additional fields, we can click on this plus sign and we can add additional fields to compare against. Now, in terms of types of joins, this is very visual and interactive. To change the type of join, we have to click on the icons. So for example, if I click on the left-hand side, this now becomes a left join, and notice that the summary of join results also changes. There are some mismatched values, but they're also being included because we're doing an outer join. The other types of joins that we can do within Tableau Prep that we can't easily do in Tableau Desktop is what we call an anti-join. So if I select everything and unselect the intersection, we can see that the join type is not inner, and it's only going to retain the ones that don't match on either tables. This is also called an anti-join. There are times where we just want to navigate and see if there are any additional fields that we need to consider. Tableau sometimes also provides join clause recommendations. And if you see them listed here, we can easily click on the plus sign to include them in our join clauses. Wide tables with many columns that pertain to the same metric can prove to be challenging to work with in Tableau Desktop. Within Tableau Desktop, we have the ability to pivot the data. That is to transform columns to rows. For example, in here, what we are seeing is a series of years, but these are provided as columns. Now we can pivot this in Tableau Prep. Essentially, when we pivot, we're going to take all of these column headings and we're going to provide them as a single column only. We're going to take all of the values as well and provide that as a single column as well. Right now, this shows us we have 54 fields, but once we pivot, we're going to have a much lower number in columns. So let's give this a try. So minimize that. So on the plus sign, we're going to add an operation called pivot. And from here, what we want to do is we want to take all the years, and these are all the values that we want to capture in two columns. The column names are going to go to a single column field, and all the values are going to be in another field. So let's rename these. This is going to be our year. What used to be the name of the columns now become a value in a field. And we're also going to have our value. So in this case, we're dealing with CO2 emissions. Okay. Now, once we add another cleaning step, we can see the change. So before the pivot, we had 54 fields, 284 rows. After the pivot, when we click on the second cleaning step, we're now down to 4 fields, but 13,000 rows. Now, one capability within Tableau Prep that is not available in Tableau Desktop is going the reverse way. For example, if we have a data set like this, in here we have our year of order date. They are provided as rows, but what if we want to unpivot this? We want 2018 and 2019 and 2020 and 2021 to be columns instead. We can do that within Tableau Prep. So let's add that. So on the drop down, it's going to be a pivot step. And instead of columns to rows, we're going to click on this drop down and we're going to select rows to columns. We're going to drag our year of order date into the fields that we want to pivot. So this is going to be year of order date, and we're going to take our sales and put that in our field to aggregate. And let's add another cleaning step. Let's move things around so it's a little bit easier to see. So where we started before we pivoted is we had 3 fields, 181 rows. after we pivoted, notice that we're not going to have this year of order date anymore, but it's going to be replaced with 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021. So in here, what we end up with is 5 fields and 49 rows. You have 2019, 2018, 2021, and 2020. And we probably just need to rearrange all of these cards. So 2018 first, 2019, 2020, 2021. There you go. Sometimes we need to branch off at a certain point in our transformation or from a certain point in our flow. The good thing is Tableau Prep supports branching. For example, in here, if after the aggregation, I need to maybe provide this as a file to a different set of end users, I can simply create on the start of the line to create a branch. So for example, if I add another clean step in here, maybe perhaps do additional cleaning, and then maybe provide a different output. So maybe in here, this is going to be an Excel file for shareholder group. But in addition to this, perhaps we need to have another output after our pivot. So we can create another output if we need to, and perhaps this one is going to be something that is published to Tableau server. I am getting some alerts right now because I have not configured our output, but in here, when I click on the output, I can specify exactly how I want the output to be. In this case, it's either a Tableau extract, an Excel file, or a CSV file. And the other options I have, if I don't want a file output, is I can publish that to Tableau server or to write that back to a database table. And currently the databases that are supported, so let's take a look at that. If I select database table, we can see in here from our connection that these are some of the databases that we can write back to. The final feature that I think is very helpful within Tableau Prep is being able to save parts of the flow and be able to reuse them. For example, in here, if I know that I'll be using these steps a lot, I can simply select all of them and I can save just these 3 steps as a flow. So I can save this to a file. Let's give this a name. Once I am in another flow, I can simply insert that flow again. So once I click on the plus sign, I can insert the flow, and let's navigate to that file. Insert flow, it's a local file. And that's my subset. Click open. When we insert a flow, we might have some additional reconfigurations that we need to do and connect the correct fields again. But this already saves us a little bit of time. The saved flows are helpful, especially when we're working with teams and we want some reusable flows or steps, or if we want to build our own flow library. Now we can have those snippets that other team members can easily just reuse. So these are the 10 features that I think are really helpful and really powerful in Tableau Prep. This is not meant to be a full-on Tableau Prep tutorial. I will create a tutorial later on, but for now, it's really just emphasizing all of those features that make Tableau Prep a really useful tool, especially when we are cleaning our data within the Tableau ecosystem. I hope you found this video helpful. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you again next time.